So, as you know, we're in the antechamber. So all the antechamber classes that we've had up to now are introductory classes. So all the topics we've seen, the ideas and the energy behind it is all introductory. Even though it is already quite deep, right? A lot of the topics, it's still introductory. It's like all of the topics have different octaves, different levels. Like when you read a book or when you read a chapter of the book, let's say the law of the pendulum that we saw, you can understand that. But if you do inner work, you mature spiritually over 1 year, and then you study that same topic again, the law of the pendulum, you have a totally different understanding of it, right? So, yeah, these are all introductory classes. And essentially, after this one, we're basically moving into the first chamber level, where things go deeper. This is because now you are starting to understand the Gnostic language. You start to talk in terms of more of Gnosis and the terminology, right? Ego, essence, everything that we've been studying, right? As we continue, I'll be recording less. This is really more for online, sharing it with others. But as we move deeper, right, the purpose of this class, the primary purpose, is to help you as individuals, right, and everyone here, including myself, that we move more deeper into spiritual awakening, right? Real spiritual awakening, not just a study group, but to really have this agreement as a group, as a certain feeling of fraternity, as brothers and sisters, to move with this aligned goal and purpose. So the first chamber goes more deeper in terms of it's not really introductory anymore. We start to put those basic foundational ideas together and we can discuss more deeper. Then in the second chamber, because right now we're having a lecture and then group meditation and all of that. But later on, it's not just a lecture and group meditation. We'll have a temple too, with certain practices, secret practices. Nothing crazy and weird. It's just like, it's kind of like it's just being like in the church, but it's deeper. Right? So, we'll be moving into that as well. I'm introducing that quite early, but it's good for you to know that that's where we move into. It's not just classes and lectures and thinking and questions, but hopefully we move into more experiences and real transformation. And to receive guidance, inner guidance and strength and spiritual energy too. That's what the purpose of the temple is, that we'll be having eventually, when we're all ready for that. Because right now it's like, to awaken your consciousness is really difficult. It's extremely difficult. We are consumed by the external life. And if you're a very strong and motivated person and you love consciousness, God, you renounce everything and try to do it, you imagine yourself as Moses or a prophet or something, you could get far, but it's still really difficult. Every initiate or every master, even Jesus, was not alone walking the path. They had help, right? Jesus' Gnostic group was called the Essenes, and he was an initiate, and he took guidance from those people who taught him to. So, yeah, that's the main purpose. We didn't have a class for 2 weeks, so I don't know about any of you, but I can sense it in myself, or I anticipate it in myself that we don't have a class for 2 weeks, so I should be more careful of my ego, not to fall or not to become more unconscious, right? Because a group like this gives us nourishment. It's like we're in the desert, walking in the desert, and we're thirsty, and we don't have much to eat or drink. And when we come to commune and do practices and learn, it's like we're receiving food, right? Wisdom, the bread of wisdom, right? So, yeah. So, as I have hinted at a lot and given clues about sexual alchemy, right, which is a really cornerstone teaching of Gnosis, we'll be doing this lecture now. But again, it is still a bit introductory. We're sort of in the antechamber level, but we'll see where we can go, and just feel free to ask any questions as we go along too, because it's quite deep and just very different to what you would ever learn, even in many other different kind of esoteric or occult teachings. So feel free to interrupt me too if you're not quite understanding or you just have any questions. We don't have to have lecture and question time. We can discuss too. There are a lot of practices, specific instructions, meditations, mantras, in order to know how to practice what we call sexual alchemy. But in very simple terms, starting very basic and starting very innocently, it's, in the most simple way you could say, it's about being in love or falling in love or understanding and harnessing what really love is, which for all of us could be so many different things, right? Some people say love is God, which is true, right? Love is God, God is love, okay, which is a simple way to say it, but that force goes very deep too. So when we're in love, the essence starts to awaken, usually. Any person that you see in life, they go around their life, they have their ego, their unconscious ways. Maybe they had pain, they had trauma growing up. At some point, when they meet someone and fall in love, the baby, the child, the essence inside them starts to awaken a little bit, right? And this is pointing towards the power of alchemy, or sexual alchemy, or marriage, in order to change a person. It's not just that the person is obsessed or lustful about the person. In genuine love, there is something deep in the soul that awakens. And so marriage is a very fundamental part of life. There's 3 biggest events in life: birth, marriage, death. In birth and death, we're alone, totally alone. But at some point in life, we get some help from the opposite force of the sex, right? If you're male, you receive some kind of female force, and if you're female, you receive some kind of male force, and this helps your essence to start to awaken. It's a bit like, because we're all born a man or a woman, and our whole life, at least in our physical nature, with our physical body, we're always this. We're always one half. A person can become full and enlightened, like this, fully enlightened, but they're still one half, you see. So once this fills up, or is making a decent effort to fill up, to become whole as one half, another force will come to help. And awaken us and give us more learning. So when we're in love, the essence awakens. We become childlike again. And we start to sense the kingdom, the internal worlds, or the reality of our soul. And when people fall out of love, you see the opposite effect. You see bitterness and the shadow appear. The ego. So, sexual transmutation is the door to initiation. Initiation into the internal worlds, into yourself, into not just yourself, but into the reality of knowing. So when we are practicing sexual transmutation, which we've discussed, right, in the most basic terms, we want to dissolve, but of course it takes time. We want to dissolve lust. We want to become, we want chastity in the mind, in the heart, and sex. And most of all, we want to avoid the orgasm. And to do that, we work with pranayama breathing techniques. In the beginning, pranayama helps a lot, but it's not just pranayama that transmutes the energy, it's the good intentions, it's meditation, it's purifying the thoughts, right? Because if a man is walking down the street, he sees an attractive woman, if he doesn't have the lustful thought, then he won't lose his energy later, right? So the thought, the internal purity is what we have to work with too, right? And self-observing those egos and everything like that. So just to back up a little bit, when we are receiving that love, or we start to awaken to this new energy, we receive fire, or we receive light. Right? So when someone is in love and they're healthy, a normal person, there will be sexual attraction, right? And that's also known as fire. And fire is also light, right? It's the sun, and it's the reason why we have the daytime too. But how do we handle that fire as well? Humanity generally receives the fire, but what does it do with it? It uses it for pride, for vanity, for adultery, in the worst cases, prostitution, pornography, all of these lower things to do with degenerated sexuality. So we receive light when love enters into our life. We all have love, right? And we can have love as a single, but in Gnosis, it's described like this. When you're a single person, you have a candle flame, and that's your fire. But when you meet someone and you start practicing alchemy, which is sex without the orgasm, that flame turns into a whole sun, and that transforms you in a very, very deep way. So this symbolism of receiving this light, and then humanity uses it in a wrong way, is symbolized by Lucifer, right? Do any of you know like the simple story behind Lucifer? Which is basically that Lucifer is in a way like a fallen angel, but Lucifer is inside us all. It's the fallen Christ. Lucifer wants to give humanity the light. So he's that part of us that still holds the light. He's the light bearer. But sadly, humanity is still not using it in the correct way. So that's why humans are still able to have this divine spark and have sexual attraction and have total free will and dominate the planet with this power of God, this creative energy. But we still use it in the wrong way. So transmutation is about still working with that light, but instead of using it for evil, we're raising it up and we're putting it back where it should be, into the Christ. So again, transmutation, when you start working with this energy, it's a door into initiation. Because as we saw, I think it was in the second class, we saw the ego tree, remember? We have all those egos and sins, but the main trunk of it is lust. And you can also say orgasm. So essentially you could say the more ego one has, or the more energy one has, the more that person might be abusing their sexual energy, or they might be more addicted to the orgasm. Okay? So what happens when that person stops experiencing the orgasm? They're gonna go crazy, right? I can't control myself, or I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna party, I'm gonna whatever that particular pattern of that ego person is. And they might some people do it unconsciously. It's like they don't want to relieve themselves sexually, and so they start to become very flamboyant and huge personality and a bit crazy, some people. So yes, but generally in these studies, when we stop experiencing the orgasm, we start to see our ego more. And that's why it's a test. In these kinds of studies, we always hear that we'll be tested, we'll have initiations, but how do we understand that internally in our own experience? And you can observe it in your own experience. When you really start to experience it and you start to get lust and the orgasm under control, the egos will start to, there will be so many temptations, and not just of lust, but distractions, things coming into our life, because we're receiving light too. We're receiving energy in order to fulfill whatever we want. Remember that sexual energy is creative energy. I think if you remember another lecture where I put intellectual center, the speed is slow. Emotional center, it's faster, more intelligent. The sexual center is very fast. Essentially, a person with a lot of sexual energy can kind of do anything, or they can learn very fast. I saw, what is the group? Like a Gnostic group, but it's a different Freemasonry, and then there's another one. Sorry?
Theosophy.
Oh yeah, Theosophy. I think it was Theosophy. I can't remember, but I saw an advertisement on Facebook, and it says that it's like a Gnostic class, but it promises to fulfill your wildest dreams. And that connects to what I'm saying too. When you start to work with the sexual energy, you gain a certain power, and the things that you desired to do, or it's like the law of attraction or something, you can start to manifest those realities quite easily. But here we're in Gnosis, right? What do we want? We want the awakening of consciousness. We want to renounce the material world and the external life, and we want to be awakened, and we want to understand God, and we want to understand the life. We don't want to be thrown out into the external world and just be consumed by it. We want to be awakened masters, right? So what I'm saying is, with this particular power, when you start to harness it, especially with sexual alchemy, things can change in your life quite fast, and you start to become very empowered. And of course, if you don't use that energy to awaken your consciousness, to make a certain vow and promise to yourself that you will awaken, then it's kind of easy that you could fall into just dreams or desires that you once had or something, to be famous or to make lots of money. Those things aren't bad, but as long as you stay on the path primarily. And this is also why this this particular teaching about harnessing the sexual energy was never taught publicly. This was the great arcanum and the great secret of secrets in all of the secret societies. They have it in all the Theosophy and Freemasonry a long time ago, but that was only reserved for the high initiates who prove themselves. Samael Aun Weor, which are the teachings which we are studying from, but not just from him, but masters who came before him, he's the first one to publicly announce this particular teaching. And he was put into prison for it by the Catholic Church because, they call it blasphemy or whatever. So yes, just to make that clear that this is the great key to all of this. So when you practice, egos will be made known to you, and it's your responsibility to transform them with the power of your consciousness, right? Your awareness, your self-understanding, as you simultaneously transmute your energy. Because as you start to harness that energy, you'll become more awake, more happy, more balanced. You receive consciousness and energy. But at the same time, you have to use that energy to also see the ego. Otherwise, the ego can just take it over. Right? It's like, this is the sexual energy awakening. Usually we just have a little bit, so our egos just like nibble it a little bit, right? But when you have a lot of sexual energy, okay, the egos are going to, it's like got a big feast, Maybe, you can kind of use your imagination. When a man is always lustful, he loves sex, take sex away from him, and maybe another ego will come in and he suddenly becomes very angry, right? Something like that. So, yes. So before this teaching and having this knowledge about this teaching, we're generally in the darkness. And that's why we don't see the ego so much. We start hearing or learning teachings about the ego and we say, is it really true? Can you even kill the ego? What is the ego? Because we don't really see it. And it's very difficult to actually see it in direct experience without this aspect. So you can, to a certain degree, but I would say it's very difficult. Once you start to have this teaching of this key, then it's very clear how much ego we have. We're also being given this key now at this time because we're coming to the end of an age as well, where there is so much great darkness. And, it's not me and it's not Master Samael giving the authority to give this teaching, but it's coming from a very high divine order that's basically saying, okay, humanity is completely lost. It's a lost cause, honestly. That's not a pessimistic or negative view. It truly is a reality that humanity is going into its own demise. Let's just experiment. We'll give them the biggest key, and whoever wants to take it will take it, and they can awaken and free themselves. In the past, it wasn't so much allowed because people can take this key and then become they have, right? They have too much ego. Their ego becomes big. One example would be someone like Hitler, right? Hitler was a great initiate, a Gnostic, but he fell and his ego became big. And of course, he knew the sexual teachings too. So although we can do self-observation, meditation, we need to do all of those things. Prayer, all of that. This one just empowers everything and really helps us to see the light. If we're able to see past the difficulty of it, the absurdity of it, like what the hell is this teaching? It's so weird, it's strange, and all of that. If we can really practice it, you'll see in direct experience the truth of it, the reality of it, with effort. Because then we start to have a torch, right? A light, which helps us to see shadows. Right? What is ego? It's a shadow of our light. But if we're in darkness and we don't have a torch, then we don't see shadows, right? So if he doesn't have a torch, it's just black. And then we say, I don't have much ego, right? And we think that the darkness is just the normal life. But darkness is not the normal life. Darkness is the illusion. But once you start to awaken some fire inside you and you start to use real consciousness, then you start to see the reality. That's why a lot of people, when they have spiritual awakening or something, authentic spiritual awakening is not usually something like, wow, God is everywhere, this is beautiful. Maybe in some cases, but usually we start to realize how much darkness we're actually living in. So, what's the solution here? Well, it's to keep raising the fire and making it brighter and brighter. If your fire is so bright, these will just dissolve eventually. Because of course, shadows are still illusion. They're just ego. They're not real. The ego isn't real. This is what's more real, right? The divine spark, or the divine mother Kundalini. Right? So remember, to work with this sexual energy, we are simultaneously working with the divine mother. If you are someone with a lot of sexual energy, if you're thinking, wow, how am I going to get this under control? I have a lot of lust and I have a lot of sexual energy. Actually, you're in a very privileged position. Mother Nature loves you a lot. The Divine Mother loves you a lot because she has given you a lot of sexual energy to work with, a lot of creative energy. And that's a blessing, to be in this life and have that sexual energy. If we don't have sexual energy, well, there's certain practices in Gnosis, certain exercises, especially if we're in old age and we have abused the energy for so many years, there are ways to regenerate the libido back in order to extend one's life to, and to bring youth and sexuality back and all of that. Talking specifically here, this is about sexual alchemy. So this is the teaching for couples, right? If we're a single, in Gnosis, if we're a Gnostic single person, we have to understand that at some point, if you're following these teachings, someone will come into your life that you'll be able to start practicing this with. And of course, if you're already in a couple, then, well, great, you can already start practicing. And it's if you're in that position, it doesn't matter so much if the other person is not following the teachings. What matters is just you, how you are in your own energy. That's it. And just before I go into the couple practice, it's really quite simple as a single. Well, we'll look more, but it's generally self-observation and meditation. There is also a practice to, I will just note it down because I didn't put it in the presentation. I'll teach you the Vajroli Mudra. This is for single people. A very powerful way to transmute the energy too. But yeah, when you're single, self-observation, meditation, pranayama to keep the energy inwards and to not spill it, to not fall into the temptation of masturbation, orgasm, all of that. Yeah. But in terms of alchemy, it has different names. White Tantra, Sexual Alchemy, Sexual Magic, Kareza, Sahatha Maithuna, Suprasexuality. Okay, so I'm just going to explain the practice of the actual practice. When a man and woman, husband and wife, are love making, right? Making love, making light. This is the specific practice here. I've made this a little bit detailed, but it's quite simple. It's just sex without orgasm. We don't need to complicate it so much, right? It's sort of, imagine it's a bit strange if you go into the sexual act thinking all sorts of weird things, let's do this and that, right? Sex is supposed to be harmonious, beautiful, right? Graceful and loving and sweet and, all of that. It doesn't need to be like we're a strange, weird person, right? But there are technical details, esoteric or spiritual details behind it to help us understand the process, the subtle processes internally. So generally, as students of Gnosis, before we go into the sexual act, we should have some kind of prayer, some kind of preparation to the Divine Mother, specifically within us. Just some prayer to ask her, just help me. Help me not to fall into experiencing the orgasm and falling into total lust. Please let me just have some consciousness about me, so that I am awake and that I don't fall sexually. I don't spill the cup, right, symbolically speaking. And it's a good idea, but you will already have, and you will already know some egos, generally speaking, before you go into the sexual act. Because of course, we've already been studying the ego, and hopefully you all have already identified at least some egos, some parts of you that you would like to change, parts of you that make you suffer, something that is just some psychological pattern that you would like to dissolve, right? And generally, as Gnostics, we would. This is something we already hold inside us, as we live and breathe and walk. Right? It's like the Christ said: "If you would like to follow me, please deny yourself and take up your cross." And you hold that. You hold that from moment to moment. Knowledge of yourself includes knowledge of your egos, things that you know that you would like to dissolve. So, you must have egos identified beforehand, or at least one. That's what Master Samael, sometimes he teaches it, that it's good to focus systematically, one by one, when we focus on one ego. So if we have a terrible laziness that is stopping us from having any kind of happiness in our life, okay, I'm going to focus on this ego of laziness. Not too much, because then you won't be in the right frame of mind to go into the sexual act. But during a certain phase of our life, we should have an ego identified that we want to dissolve. And we're going to use the creative energy. So I'm trying to talk a little slow to help you reflect on the words that I'm using. Sexual energy, creative energy. Right? What is creativity? What is creative energy? It's connected to our word. It's connected to our sexuality. Creative energy is connected to our imagination. It's connected to our soul. And what is a sexual act? It's a creative act. When you hear music like Beethoven or Mozart or any great musician or great artist, they are using their sexual creative energy in a very sublime, beautiful way. And in the same way, in a similar way, in the sexual act, we are using the creative energy. But how are we using it? Are we using it in a very lustful way? Then what are we creating? But are we using it in a pure way? Then we could achieve something, some internal purity. Okay. So I've put 3 stages here. The first stage, middle stage, and the end stage. Going into sex, the middle or the height or the peak of sex, not orgasm, but a different peak, and then the end of sex. Okay. I'm going to send you some videos too. I don't know if any of you have watched any of my YouTube videos. I know you have, but the White Tantra video. Have you seen?
But I didn't finish.
Okay, I think it's a very useful video. I'll send in the group chat. I made that one for couples, and I also made another video for singles too. And there's a lot of good resources and books you can read about it. But anyway, start, middle, end. Of course, in the beginning, there is affection, right? The normal thing. Take your partner out on a date, go to the movies, and dance and sing, and roses and butterflies and love and affection, all of that, right? All of the normal things that we kind of receive in normal relationships. Kisses, loving words, romance. And of course, that starts to raise the fire, certain fire there. Our flame is being fanned. Yes, our flame is being fanned, right? To make the fire high, right? Okay, so you go into the sexual act, and then I had a recent astral experience of understanding this, which I'm sure is, well, it helps me now to explain it. I saw in the astral, and I already know that this is connected to the practice of alchemy. I won't explain the whole experience, but I saw a volcano. Yeah?
I dreamt of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You were together with your wife?
Okay.
That's it.
Right, amazing, yeah. Yeah. As I was saying, when we move into second chamber, Master Samael, he says that he taught the system that Gnostic groups need at least three levels. He said, well, first chamber, second chamber, third chamber. Generally, you don't see third chamber so much because third chamber is for those who are completely awakened. Not completely awakened, but they've remembered a lot of their past lives and they actively astral project. They come out of their body whenever they want. So it's very rare that we would find a third chamber level. But hopefully we'll be moving at second chamber level. And he said this is necessary in order for the Christ to come into the group. If we just keep having classes like this and they're just intellectual and they're nice and we don't move deeper, then the Christ doesn't start being active. And what is the Christ? The Christ said, I am there when 2 or more are in my name. And we're coming here in the name of Christ. in the sense that in a, not with our worldly personalities, but in order to help each other's being, help each other's Christ, right? So as we move deeper, things like that can be more normal, a normal occurrence, that we might see each other in the astral light. You start seeing a certain symbolic representations of energies that you see in the other person, something like that. But yeah, so I'll share that experience. I'm with a famous person, a celebrity. I can't name him. When you are granted certain powers of seeing the true reality or the true colors of people, you can tell others about it, but it would be bad karma to say it out loud to other people. But I'm with a celebrity. This person is, it's an actor, a person who is also part of a secret society.
So it's Hollywood.
Yeah. And I'm walking up a big mountain, and I realize that at the top there's a volcano. And so I'm going up the volcano. And this actor, and I'm not interested in this person at all, it was very random to see him there. And he's going up too. And so I understand that this person knows the sexual teachings too, and he's working with it. We're walking up very high. He's walking very fast. And he's telling me to hurry up. And I'm saying, no, slow down, right? In Tantra, we need to slow down a lot and relax. But he's going very fast, so I'm catching up with him because I'm interested in what this person is doing. And at the top of the volcano, Tantra, by the way, is also called, that White Tantra is also called working in the fiery forge. Because in a forge, you forge a sword, right? And you can forge yourself. Anyway, at the top, the volcano is like spitting everywhere. And we get to the top. It's dangerous. I don't want to go too close because it's spitting, right? What you could also understand is sexual temptation. Don't go to the top and get burned, right? Don't burn yourself in the orgasm, right? So we get to the top, and I'm scared. I'm like, I don't want to go so close. It's too hot. And there's a very peaceful temple next to me. I'm going to go in there, but he's telling me, "Oh, come to the top. It's great." And I said, no, thank you. I'll go into the temple. But he goes right to the top, and I'm very impressed that, wow, he goes there. So this guy knows the sexual teachings, but using Black Tantra. Black Tantra always involves the orgasm. So I don't know if he's using it to try to get more famous and have more money or something like that. But yeah. But it's a very good symbolic representation that Tantra is about, we're not denying the libido and the sexual energy. We're going up. We have to go to the top of the volcano, but take refuge in a temple and have peace and prayer and serenity and work with the energy of the fire, the sacred fire, but not burn ourselves. Because if we burn ourselves, we just kind of fall back below. But while we're up there, we can work with the fire. Yeah. So we'll see here. Once you're in the sexual act, at some point, there will be a peak, right? You start, the fire starts to rise, and of course, usually people just orgasm finished because the electricity has short-circuited, right? It's finished. It's like a light bulb, it's on, and then gone, right? Usually, it's the men that that do that, right? Women are more naturally inclined towards Tantra in that sense. But still most women are the same, that they can short circuit too. But yes, anyway. So affection, rising the fire. So when you are in the sexual act, before any caution, before orgasm, anything like that, we work with concentration, right? You concentrate on the act. Don't let your mind go somewhere else. Fantasies, distractions. You breathe, use your willpower, beauty, imagination. This is also known as we are stealing fire from hell. Or like we said before, we're sort of stealing the fire from Lucifer. Because that fire, it's our animal nature too, right? The masters, for example, who are liberated, they don't need sex anymore. So when you see priests today who are in churches, they don't have sex, right? But that's not quite right, because they still have sexual energy. They're still ego, and they still have the animal nature inside them. But that's why we see some difficult cases or extreme cases where deep perversion comes out, right? Pedophilia, right? And things like that. Yes, right. Lots of different things like that, yeah. Because they suppress the energy, which is a very dangerous thing. They see it as sin. This sacred energy that God gives us, if you see that as sinful, that's already dangerous on a mental level. The energy can't express itself mentally, it can't express itself emotionally, but it's still going to build up somewhere, and suddenly they become possessed, and something bad happens. They have a totally alter ego, right? So, yeah, this is also known as stealing fire from hell. We're raising it from the lower chakras and bringing it upwards where it belongs. It's also, Master Samael, he says that we all have a sun here and our moon is here. We have to switch that around, put our moon down here and our sun here. So stealing fire from hell, but not being burned by it. Handling it. And it's not just avoiding the orgasm. It's much wiser to understand that we have to avoid the spasm. Right? Before there's an orgasm, there's a certain spasm first. That's what comes first before the orgasm. If that comes, well, you just have to be very careful. If you're in the sexual act and you feel the spasm, or you're just so close to the orgasm, it's more wiser to stop. You can squeeze the muscle, and you can do hamsa as we practice, or just stop, and whatever you can do to stop. If you're more experienced, more experienced people can use their mind to control it. But in the beginning, it takes a lot of effort. So physical things help. So once you're raising the fire, you're in the sexual act, you're enjoying it, everything like that, the lance appears. The Divine Mother it can be seen in the astral like a lance, like a sword, that she will kill the egos for you. So essentially, instead of the orgasm, we experience a shift deep in our psyche, in our psychological world. Certain changes can happen, especially if we ask it and intend it. So during that act, instead of being caught up in the passion and the lust, bring an ego to mind. So I would like to, you can ask, right? You can ask just mentally, I would like to kill this ego of laziness. But better also to bring the impressions and the memories that you've had from your life come to mind and dissolve it. You can also feel that energy, because the sexual energy is like an electricity. And it's in the body. The sexual energy is there. But if your mind begins to think of negative occurrences that happened, like laziness and this ego of laziness, you can feel that energy too. But if the Divine Mother energy, the sexual energy, rises, it can dissolve those patterns. Yeah. So, in simple terms, during the sexual act, ask the Divine Mother to kill an ego, and it will happen. Yeah. The impurities are boiled. That's why Master Samael, he says, in order for the ego to dissolve, all of our centers need to be, the water needs to be boiled to 100 degrees. So, for example, if we have certain egos in our emotions, let's say we become very sad all the time, or we become very angry, we need to go through certain emotional crisis, and in order for us to see it and observe it. That also applies sexually too. That we need this heat and this fire. It's like the lava coming to the top of a volcano to bring heat to it. So, this raised creative heat is necessary to dissolve the psychic aggregates, the egos, at all our levels, intellectually, emotionally, with our whole being. And then, of course, the conclusion, right? The end. You bring the sexual act to an end, prayerfully. It would be better if it's in a prayerful way. And that is a certain sacrifice too, that takes effort. In White Tantra, you can have sex for as long as you like, really, as long as you enjoy it, but maybe it could go on forever too, so you need to know when to stop. But usually also it can end naturally too. Especially the man will just lose the erection and it will end naturally. But most people don't understand that because they think, how can I be satisfied? But actually, if the man just continues, yes, it's going to take longer. Actually, the energy will settle and you'll feel a new type of satisfaction, which has a certain spiritual light behind it, in your aura, in your energy. You feel relaxed and satisfied, not through the lust and through the orgasm, which the orgasm actually damages a lot of the organs, and especially the prostate and everything like that. So it's very rejuvenating, actually. Yeah, that's why a lot of men in the especially in the 60s, if they have abused orgasm a lot of them have prostate problems, things like that. Yes. So, at the end, there will be light. And this light is actually very much related to samadhi, or the end steps which we've been studying, right? This ecstasy, this samadhi, tantric ecstasy. So if you are transmuting your energy, even if you are single, if you're transmuting it and or also in a couple, then you'll be able to experience samadhi a lot more easier, and your meditations will be a lot more deeper and more profound when you are transmuting the energy. That's if you're a single or if you're in a couple. But if you're in a couple, of course, you're having a lot more energy, and you start to understand this tantric ecstasy a bit more. Yeah. Any questions about that?
So I just remembered that I read one of Master Samael's book.
Yeah.
I just put that, but in there it says that.
Oh no, I think. Do you mean it's at least once every 24 hours, right?
But it was indicated 2 hours, at least 2 hours.
Oh, to practice it at least for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Or maybe it's
I'm
in
not
the book like Tao, Sexual Alchemy by Mantak Chia.
Ah, maybe Mantak Chia then.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So
Okay. Did you read Mantak Chia
did.
because I recommended it in one of my videos?
I mean in your video.
Ah, okay, I see.
And then,
Yeah.
But I didn't finish the entire book yet. So.
Later on, in that video, I I removed his recommendation because I never read his whole book, but people started telling me things about him, and then I read more of his works, and I realized that he's not exactly, he's a lot more black than it seems.
Actually, I realized that he mentioned in that book that you can do orgasms sometimes.
Yes, so it's grey tantra.
That's why I thought that.
And in Gnosis, any grey tantric teaching, we already recognize it as black tantra, because the grey tantra will always lead to the black tantra. Even if you say, okay, I'll only orgasm once every month or every 2 weeks, the energy is still flowing outward and downwards. You need to develop this hermetic seal, and if you really commit to no more orgasm at all, it's a lot more easier, and you'll never need it again, and you'll just keep rising upwards. It's very difficult once you start to orgasm and make it come back up again. It's yeah. Of course, we need a lot of practice. We still need to do a lot of practice to really stay in White Tantra and no orgasm. But of course, people fall, right? But it doesn't mean that they're suddenly a black magician or in doing grey Tantra or something. But I think generally for most students, yes, they are unintentionally in grey Tantra because they're struggling. But the important thing is to have the mind and the heart and the intentions of White Tantra completely. And there's a difference between intentionally spilling the cup and unintentionally spilling the cup. If you unintentionally do it, you don't lose as much degrees in consciousness. But of course, if you're intentionally doing it, you fall much more and it's harder to get back up. Yeah. So yeah, Mantak Chia's book, right? But what did he say? That it was is 2 hours, which is, it's in line with the, well, I'm not quite sure, but it sounds about right anyway, because when you are practicing and you're in a couple and there's so much love and light and sexual energy, I don't think it's, we have to follow our nature. Every man and woman and couple, they have their own clock, their own sexual clock, like the moon too. And the woman has her cycle, and also the man falls into a cycle too. So maybe sometimes they don't actually have any sexual desire, but later on they will. But generally speaking, in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of sexual energy. I don't think 10 minutes or 20 minutes would satisfy them. Not in an egoic way, but the energies won't be concluded. So yeah, as I said before, the couple can practice for as long as they want. But the rule is once a day, but as long as they want, but not all the time throughout the day. So they're raising the fire, and then they stop, and then they raise the fire again, and they stop, right? So that would be like, doing it 3 times a day, it's too much. It should generally just be maximum once every 24 hours. Yeah. And preferably also at night too. Because that helps, we're going to see here, it helps to build the solar astral body. This is also another purpose of sexual alchemy. Yeah. Any more questions before we continue? All right. So, I've put here profound transformation of subconscious impressions. I don't think we ever talked about impressions so much or so in depth. So we'll just review a little bit. To transform an impression, we have the sensual mind and we receive impressions. So right now, we're all receiving impressions through our senses. Yes. We're hearing things and seeing things, and that's the sensual mind. Now, let's say we have a negative reaction towards something in life. So maybe try to recall a negative reaction that you had recently. Maybe you looked at someone and they annoyed you or something like this. If you're not conscious during that time, then the impression of that person and that experience is going to negatively impact your internal state. Right? Now, if you are conscious during that moment, let's say someone insults you. Say, I think you're a stupid person, go away, right? If you're conscious and you remember yourself and you don't let that person affect you, then you transform the impression. You don't let that impression come inside you negatively anymore, right? Maybe you start to think compassionate thoughts. Oh, this person must be suffering or something. Right? You turn the other cheek. That is a transforming an impression. Right? But if you don't transform it, if you weren't conscious, you didn't remember yourself, then what happens to that impression? It goes into an indigestion. Maybe you get into a negative state all day just because a person insulted you. Right? And that's an indigestion. So it's the same when we're eating food and we have our mind somewhere else, or we eat too much. We get indigestion, we get pain. In the same way, we get psychic pain. Now, when we apply this to sexual alchemy, we're actually transforming very deep impressions within us too. So sometimes when a person they find themselves in a very loving and healing relationship, sometimes they can find that the sexual act is very healing for them because they had so much trauma, they have someone that loves them now. In a sense, they are transforming deeply embedded traumatic impressions, you see. So I'm trying to help you understand that how the sexual creative act can also transform us in this way. Because, of course, when you are practicing, you'll still be having your egos, right? Okay, I'm practicing White Tantra, but I still have my egos. But every time I go into the act now, I have knowledge of what is making me suffer. And that part of your being can be transformed with that energy, the fire that is raised. So, usually impressions which come through the sensual mind are transformed at the moment of entry by not reacting to a person. Right? This can only be done when you're conscious, or else that impression will go into indigestion, right? Which is felt like a resistance. Oh, I'm so annoyed that person insulted me, or something. So, just some examples. We change anger to calm, pride to humility. We change lust to respect, love, chastity. And of course, to do that, we have to be in the center of our gravity, right? In those difficult circumstances. You become empowered by being watchful of the impressions arriving to you. And then you also learn to anticipate that in the future. You start to develop the energy to anticipate it. Next time I go to work and this person is annoying me or insulting me, I'm going to be ready for the negative impression that's going to come to me. And, I won't react. If you don't react, well, something will change and you won't be affected anymore, right? Yes. To transform an impression is to be conscious of it. Instead of reactions into mental violence or desires, we transform it into awareness, consciousness, self-cognizance. We start to have more relaxed body and mind. Actually, these negative impressions are good for us. We call this psychological gym of life. Just as people go out to work out in gyms and get strong, we actually need these difficult, challenging situations in our life to make us spiritually strong. Otherwise, we won't have the strength to continue the work. And of course, this takes sacrifice, right? There's a certain level of sacrifice and self-denial in order to succeed with this. And it's the same for sexual alchemy too. It's a certain sacrifice. Actually, to deny the orgasm is the biggest sacrifice, or the one that takes the most spiritual energy to deny that impulse. You're not just denying an impulse of some insignificant orgasm, but you're denying an impulse of thousands of years of animal history in your past as a soul. And that takes incredible strength.
Yeah, what's the point of having sex if you don't orgasm?
Right. That's what the ego thinks, right? Yeah. So the practice is to be in the center of the Tao, right? The peace sign, and observe the mental and emotional pendulums. The more we're in the center, the more we have this center of gravity, the easier it is to also practice alchemy, because you're able to observe these waves, mental waves coming in, emotional waves, and also sexual waves. That's why I said before, yes, if you're in the sexual act and you feel like you're going to fall or spill the cup, yes, you can use physical strength to close and squeeze and do hamsa, but you can actually control it mentally too, which takes time. So, Master Samael here, he has a quote: "Metaphysical copulation, sex, but at the spiritual level, with all its erotic refinement, places us in a privileged position in which we have at our disposal the marvelous forces that allow us to reduce to cosmic dust each one of the sinister entities which personify our psychological defects, our egos." So what he's saying here is, during that act, there are amazing cosmic forces, creative forces, that really help us to dissolve to complete dust psychological parts of ourselves. It's very difficult to understand this intellectually. When you put it into practice, you get the direct knowledge of it. Yeah. So, being single, this is a very precious and important time of our life where we prepare for marriage. Especially if we are on this path, we're developing ourselves, we're improving ourselves, we're growing, we're changing, we're dying to the ego. It's inevitable that someone will come into your life eventually. And it's some words of wisdom that it's not marriage that makes you strong. You have to be strong as a single first. Right? If you're not strong as a single first, then in a way you sort of make the other person suffer, right? You should be the strength for the other person first. So when you enter a marriage, you begin to comprehend sacrifice for others, because when you are single, your attention is on you a lot. Once you're with another person, that attention shifts away from yourself and your self-improvement to another human being. Okay. And to do that correctly, you have to be, to the best of your ability, free from selfishness and self-consideration. Because two become one, right? Two flesh become one. And not just flesh, but energetically. When two people join sexually, the root chakras are connecting. And those energies are mixing together now. Which is also another point. If you have had sexual relations with a person, it's better to wait, generally speaking, at least 1 year before you find another partner. Otherwise, you start to connect. you still hold energies of that other person internally. And it could cause complications. So being single, it's about keeping the fire burning low and practice self-observation, meditation, transmutation, pranayama. Keep the fire burning low, which means it's not about not having any sexual energy, because you still need it, right? You don't want to be like an abstinent priest, right? You still need that energy and respect that energy. But you also don't want to have it so high, because then there is temptation to fall. Some people become a bit discouraged in these teachings when they're single, but it's important not to be discouraged. You have to observe egos of hopelessness, of loneliness, and spiritual ambition too. Right? Because when we're in these teachings, we want to awaken our consciousness and all of this and build the solar astral bodies and everything. But that spiritual ambition is also causing us pain too. We're not accepting the reality of what God wants for us right now, right? So it's good to observe our ambitions, our loneliness, and learn to be truly at peace as a single person first. So always remember yourself when we are in constant observation, and your being is with you, and your Divine Mother. There is no more loneliness, and you have a warmth and serenity inside you. Which, of course, if we're like this, it's more likely we're going to attract the right person too, right? If we try to find someone out of loneliness and attachment, then we're going to create some kind of relationship that is based on that negative ego, right? But if we have light within us, we'll just probably attract someone that adores that light inside us, right? And it will be a mutual admiration of each other's being, and not a relationship based on ego. You could call it a very karmic relationship, right? So when we follow our innermost being, which knows what we need, it will show us who we need as a partner, eventually. The problem is we don't listen to our being most of the time. We just listen to desires, and then people make mistakes and suffer and get into difficult karmic relationships. So it's better to wait and trust that the right person will come at the right time. And when you meet a partner, or you meet a potential partner, there's one way to know for certain who they are, and it's love, right? Simply put, you'll feel love. The basis of spiritual work is love. The love for your spouse is the defining factor of your marriage. This is the most important choice you'll ever make. Be certain that your love is genuine and real when you find someone new. Yes. And Samael here, he has a beautiful quote which talks about that. To love, how beautiful it is to love. Only the great souls can and know how to love. Love is infinite tenderness. Love is the life that beats in every atom as it beats in every sun. Love cannot be defined because it is the Divine Mother of the world. It is that which comes to us when we really fall in love. Love is felt within the depths of the heart. It is a delectable experience. It is a consuming fire. It is divine wine, a delight to those who drink it. A simple perfumed handkerchief, a letter, a flower, give rise to great inner uneasiness, exotic ecstasy, and ineffable voluptuousness within the depths of the soul. Examine yourself before you get married. Do you feel capable of shedding even your last drop of blood for the being you adore? Would you die for the person that you love? Would you be capable of giving your life so that your beloved could live? Reflect and meditate. Does a true affinity of thought, feeling, and will exist within the person that you adore? So, it's a very good thing to meditate on. Would we actually die for the person that we love? Quite rare, I think, for people today to say that. There are a lot of girlfriends and boyfriends and Tinder relationships just for sex and not really willing to die for the person, right? So we're not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but we need to examine whether we're capable of that. In terms of sexual alchemy, the three factors also apply here to the sexual teachings. The three factors of Gnosis: the psychological death of the ego, the birth of the solar bodies, okay, we'll look into that in a second, and sacrifice. So the three factors are death, birth, and sacrifice. These are the three factors of awakening consciousness that we need, which can be applied to many different ways, but here in alchemy we're saying that we need to incorporate the practice of the psychological death of the ego. And then this one is the transmutation of the energy, which leads to the solar bodies, which we'll see. And of course, in order to do that, we already learn what sacrifice is, to sacrifice yourself for another person. Okay, I sacrifice this pleasure and this orgasm in order to provide light and love and happiness to my spouse, to my family, to other people, to humanity. And I've put here, to realize other people as yourself is love. When you're in a marriage, the other person, it really becomes an aspect of yourself. And it's kind of absurd to make that person your enemy. They will become your enemy, but they are also part of yourself. And when you start to see them as yourself, then there is love. Because love doesn't see separation. So, the purpose also, another purpose of sexual alchemy, is to create the solar bodies. So all of us are born with lunar bodies, or the lunar astral body, but we don't have solar bodies. So every time we wake up in the morning and we remember all these dreams, they're coming from our lunar body, which we are given from nature, from Mother Nature. And we basically have them here. You have a physical body, vital body, the sexual body, etheric body, astral body, emotions, mental body relating to our thoughts, and this is a causal body relating to our willpower. Now, at the moment, these are all lunar. Sexual alchemy is harnessing the energy of the Christ, of the solar forces. Okay, all the food that we eat has solar atoms. It comes from the sun. So in order to create food, plants, animals, they all need some power from the sunlight. And when we eat that food or drink whatever water we have, our body processes it all, and then the last thing that the body creates is semen or sperm. That's the very last product. So semen or sperm is a solar force. And when we are transmuting that, those hormones and everything comes together and it rises, it creates the solar bodies. So instead of a lunar astral body, which is filled with dreams, and it's unconscious, and it's mechanical, it starts to become illuminated, light, golden. It's a solar astral body, meaning that one is always awake with that body. And also when you die, you can use that body. It never dies, not like the lunar astral body. So these are awakened solar bodies with awakened consciousness, free from time. Yes, they're like golden bodies with awakened consciousness. So the initiate creates these bodies through sexual alchemy to ascend into the superior worlds. The physical, vital, astral, mental, and causal bodies are created through the beginning stages of sexual alchemy. These bodies are superior due to being created out of solar energy or Christic energy. Okay. So this path we're taking is to be Christified, to go through the process of Christification, to become an inner Christ. So this is opposed to the inferior bodies or lunar bodies which we receive from nature. Okay. So again, very difficult to understand intellectually, but when you start to practice it, you start to feel certain energies. You start to become more awake in the astral, in the internal worlds. You start to see with your mental body, your thoughts more. You start to understand your will, your different willpower. Okay. These are also known as the wedding garment in the Bible or Christianity. Also the Merkaba in Kabbalah. The To Soma Heliakon in Greek, and Sahu in Egyptian. Different bodies, eternal bodies. Some people in Gnostic studies, they may have already created the solar body in past lives, and they haven't dissolved the ego yet, so they're still here. Yeah. So it's important to create the solar bodies because this helps us a lot. It's a great tool. It's like a divine gift to have an awakened solar body in which you can come out of your body anytime and receive knowledge. But the most important thing in Gnosis is always to dissolve the ego. That's the most important thing. Okay. So just as ordinary physical bodies, babies, are born of sex between a man and a woman, the solar bodies can only be created by people practicing sexual magic, retaining and transmuting the sexual energy according to God's will, your being's will, during the sexual act. While single individuals practicing chastity, transmutation, and meditation can establish psychological equilibrium, they can eliminate their ego and pass through the minor mysteries. Okay? Sexual magic is required to awaken the Kundalini and enter the major mysteries. The minor mysteries are to do with more, it's like preparing the soul to become strong, to motivate the soul. We'll look into it at a later stage. The major mysteries are, well, something much more deeper. So yes, this is the true meaning of to be born again, which is to create the solar bodies. So here, Samael says, the authentic and legitimate astral, mental, and causal vehicles, bodies, are born of sexual magic. It's obvious that during sex, the aura of the husband and wife are totally opened. Then, within our own depths, marvelous psychic fertilizations can be performed. So when a man and woman are in sex, it's like the whole aura is now open. It's like you're a surgeon on a table and you can start to move things around. Okay. You can kind of understand it when, if you've ever seen two people get into a relationship and one of them changes in a totally different way because the other person is very influential and very, they have a strong personality. So let's say an innocent girl gets with a guy with a very strong personality. He's having sex with her and he's thinking so many things while having sex. Of course, she's going to be influenced a lot and changed a lot. So there's certain influences when a man and woman have sex with each other, they can influence each other in very strong ways, whether for good or for evil. So the final outcome becomes precisely the birth of our legitimate astral body. First is the astral body when you do sexual magic successfully. The astral body starts to be awakened. You'll have very significant astral experiences. Later on, the other bodies are born. Mental body, causal body. Those are very profound. So, alchemy is like a metamorphosis. The metamorphosis of a butterfly, right? A caterpillar. Where the necessary seed of our hormones germinates in the laboratory of our human body and struggle to eventually become a butterfly. So when you see the very old medieval alchemists, people are still trying to understand what they were talking about. They were actually just Gnostics who understood sexual alchemy too. They did alchemy, but they understood the sexual teachings too. But because they would have been burned at the stake, they concealed the teachings in alchemist languages. So yes, if you've ever seen a butterfly in your dreams or you're seeing it a lot.
I'm seeing it a lot.
You're seeing it a lot too? Yeah, Sherry is too.
Well,
Yeah.
just this morning I saw.
Yeah, and me too. In the astral, when I started Gnostic teachings, I started seeing butterflies, caterpillars, and things like this.
What about moths? Is that?
Yeah, same. I think moth is more related, they come out at night.
Yeah,
So maybe developing some kind of, maybe to do with your emotions, because it's subconscious, to do with the moon. But yeah, alchemy is going into this chrysalis in order to, yes, we're a caterpillar right now. How many caterpillars will become butterflies? We don't want to go into darkness. However, it's necessary if we want to ascend and have freedom. So we have to go into this chrysalis, descend into darkness and see what's going on so that we can really transform. And eventually then that Kundalini that is raised, the plant, the tree of life, which is, this tree of life will grow and eventually we'll have freedom as a butterfly. It takes a long time. Generally, it's like what's taught is if everything is okay and good and you're a perfect student, about 7 years and you can become an ascended master. That's extremely rare. In most cases, this can actually take lifetimes for many people. But our intention here is to do all of this in one lifetime. Yes. We don't want to come back and go through another womb and be a baby and go through all of this again. We would like spiritual freedom. But generally it takes many years. And there's a whole process too, which we'll study the process of that and how long it takes and what it means to raise the Kundalini in the different bodies, the 3 mountains. Yeah, that's all first chamber lectures. So yes, it's important to be gentle with yourself. This is a very heavy teaching, quite advanced. So it takes a lot of time and effort. It takes super efforts. That's what we always say in Gnosis. That's what Master Samael says. He says that Okay, you're going to climb a mountain. This is how you should make the effort. Get up in the morning, get to the top of the mountain, come back. Your wife will have a nice soup and food for you and a bed ready for you when you come back at the end of the day when you're finished. He says, when you come back at the end of the day and you see a comfortable bed and a bath and food, he says, don't go back into the house. Go back up the mountain again. We have to make super efforts in all of these spiritual practices. Okay, we will do a special meditation. We're going to watch a video first, but I'll explain what meditation we'll do today, because it relates also to White Tantra, which is comprehending the ego. So do you remember the meditation that we had on the retrospective meditation, where we went backwards in life, right? Did we go backwards? We started from birth, right? And then we tried to come here. So we're going to use another imagination meditation where we comprehend an ego. So, of course, when we are comprehending the ego, first, for the ego to die, there needs to be comprehension first, right? So first, of course, there needs to be self-observation during the day. Hopefully, you've already been practicing self-observation to the best degree that you can. So with self-observation, which is just pure awareness, not judgmental, it's just light, right? In this meditation that we'll do, we are going to do retrospection. So hopefully you have identified a certain behavior, negative emotion, mood, something that occurs during your day that makes you unconscious. And you want to remove it. So during meditation, in this practice, we use our mind's eye to go through a certain experience again, where that ego happened. And while we're doing that, while we're reflecting and meditating, intimate self-understanding will come from it, because we are observing it again through retrospection. And understanding and realization will come through it just through observing it as an observer, non-identified, right? Not judging ourselves, but just seeing ourselves as if we are really interested in it, as if you're in a movie theater and you're watching a character and you're really trying to understand yourself. Certain understanding will come from that. So the process of ego death is quite simple. It's observation, comprehension, and then death. If you have the comprehension, and you fully understand it, then you can pray to the Divine Mother to dissolve it. Say, please, Divine Mother, dissolve this ego now. I don't want it. And you can ask that because you really understand it now. Yeah. So this will be the practice. Profound relaxation and non-identification. 2, live through a scene that brought you suffering. Okay. The ego, something that happened. Number 3, yearn to comprehend the egos. Try to understand that it is not you, and try to understand how it happened. Right? Maybe you had a event with a family member or something where maybe your whole family had a very big fallout, and it was a huge event. It happened just because you reacted to one little insult that escalated to a whole thing. So you can already observe, I have ego of pride that gets offended when someone insults me. Right? Just one example. Right? Maybe we lost all our sexual energy because we saw an attractive person outside. Okay, observe that, go through why why it was so strong for you. What part of the body was so tempting to you? What parts of you are so addicted to sex in this way, right? Yes, many examples that hopefully you can already feel now. It doesn't have to be, like part of the 7 sins. It can just be any kind of negative behavior that is happening in your life that keeps you unconscious. I'll guide you through that because it's our first time doing that anyway, a guided meditation. And at the end of it, we're going to use a mantra, cream, 13 times. Cream is related to this digestion of these impressions that are inside us. And it's also related to the element of fire and burning the ego. And the number 13 is the number of death too. So we do that mantra 13 times and it's going to help. With cream, you actually roll the R, but not everyone is able to roll the R. Cream. Can everyone do? Okay, but if you can't, it's okay. You can just do krr. You don't have to roll the R. Okay, so I'll guide you through that anyway. Relaxing the whole body. Observing the thoughts, feelings, emotions. Observing our state of mind, our level of being, becoming aware. And at the same time, relaxing, finding our center. And asking our being to let us experience the stillness and the center of ourself. Relaxing the body from the feet to the legs, to the hips, the heart, the chest, the throat, shoulders, hands, arms, neck, and the head. Relaxing the whole body. You may do pranayama, Hamsa, or inhaling for 5 seconds and holding it for a while, and then exhaling, and repeat. Letting the body breathe naturally. Continue to relax. And prepare the mind for retrospection. Choose a specific ego that is going to help you to become more conscious if we dissolve it. Choose a certain behavior, a negative mood, something, some psychological aspect that is stopping you from living more consciously. It may be related to laziness, pride, anger, lust, jealousy, or any other kind of strong, repetitive thought or emotion that takes over you and makes suffering and difficulties. And once you have chosen one, now choose any specific memory where it happened, where it played out, where it acted out. And enter that memory very slowly, detached, interested, like you're watching the character on a movie screen. Interested in this particular person, you, and what emotions and thoughts are related to this situation and this experience that happened where you lived unconsciously. And watch every detail, the scenes that happened before it, and then what triggered it. Be interested and pray to know what triggered it. Why does it exist? Is it related to other egos? What thoughts are connected to that particular ego? Maybe a thought of jealousy relates to an ego of lust, or a certain desire relates to an ego of anger. Do your best to observe and try to find out, like a detective, what thoughts were triggered and what emotions were felt to create this negative happening in that moment. So go through it now and let it play in your imagination slowly, non-identified. And try to learn as you watch. Your new perspective in this new awareness may give you new realization. That's very good. But just continue to try to find all the answers, to get the full story, the full picture, full comprehension. Try not to overthink. You don't need to overanalyze. If you're not getting answers, just continue meditation and pray for the answers to come. As you watch and live through these scenes in your mind's eye. Try to experience the scene with your intellectual mind, your emotional mind, and also your instinctive, motor instinctive sexual mind. If you're not understanding the ego in one memory, you can explore it in other situations, in different memories. What is the true impact of having this particular ego? What would your life be like if you didn't have it? How is it affecting the people in your life? How is it affecting yourself, your true self, your essence? In this way, we may also feel some remorse. Remorse in the sense that now we realize how to make the decision now to no longer act in that way, to no longer act through that ego anymore. A sincere desire with humility to be free from this negative occurrence, this part of ourself, so that we may grow into happiness and wisdom and love. And in that spirit, having comprehended at least some of this particular ego, and with some remorse in our heart, we can do our own prayer to our Divine Mother, our particular Divine Mother, our innermost, to ask her to teach us how to dissolve this ego, to teach us comprehension, and also to ask her to dissolve it. To remove it, to kill it in accordance with how she judges. So connecting to the Divine Mother, our innermost being, connecting to the internal fire. We may also see a fire. In our whole body, while we chant the mantra Krim, K-R-I-M, 13 times. And we can do this together, starting now. Seeing this ego being dissolved. Keeping the ego in the mind. Asking the Divine Mother to dissolve it. Giving thanks to our being, giving thanks to our Divine Mother for supporting us, giving us the strength to observe our ego, and helping us to give us the energy to work against it. To eventually dissolve it and transmute the energy.